Hello again from my side. I'm very, very sorry that I'm not able to be in Frankfurt right now. Currently, we are again in the selection process of actually filling our sixth activation batch with international startup, and that actually takes quite some effort. So we had 300 startups to be rated, to be sorted, and so that actually keeps me here in Hanover. But you're warmly welcome to visit us. We are right next to the train station, so whenever you go to Agri-Technica or Eurotier, this is Eurotier as a big agricultural livestock focused fair, then really warm welcome. Please stand by at RootCamp. We're very happy to have you here, and we have always a free desk space available. But today, I'd like to explain a little bit about how we try to save the world and with our possibilities and limited resources, but how actually to look at ecosystems and then really go into the detail and still be proactive. So combine this huge demand and huge task of, as I said, saving the world, and actually direct it towards proactive and clear meaning and clear steps of what to do and how to do whatever you are actually able to do with the resources. First of all, I'd like to explain a little bit about myself or what we have built up here. So the name is, you can see it's RootCamp. So yes, we are more a camp, so we want to have our doors open. Everybody, as I said, is warmly welcome to come here. We are very happy to have people here to interact, and in the end, we are no expert for anything but startup coaching. But we like to actually drive the process in that, bringing all the experts together and have them interact. And so a few words about RootCamp, why we are able to do it actually, and how we are set up. It's a short, brief introduction, and then I will move into the ecosystem and then also the value chain. So first of all, we are considering ourselves being an innovation hub. Bioeconomy, so everything in ag-tech, everything in food tech is included. Always looking into the material stream, the larger the better, and also circularity. So circular processes using also the fossil-based resources we have and turning them into value also for the agri-food system. So, for example, nutrients from the battery recycling can also be applied as fertilizer, although it's not really considered being bioeconomy. We have three pillars. The initial pillar, the main pillar, is actually the corporate innovation and venture financing services. So we are paid by the industry. Helping the industry is a very specific type of consultancy, and we use the startup ecosystem to actually help or find the right solution for the industry. That's why we help actually also the startups to be actually a good partner, a good collaborator, and surviving in startup in this world. So otherwise, there wouldn't be of help for the corporates. But in the end, the C-level was working quite fine, doing really always a connection between corporates and startups. This is also what I did actually beforehand, where I was on the investor side, also between startups and corporates, and to have more of the challenges to really find where to apply the solution. Then we are also going into the value chain and into the ecosystem. So that is what I'm going to talk about in a little bit. We are, as I said, in Hanover. This is our town hall. We are having actually an open space, so 700 square meters under management, directly in the center of Hanover. It's an old building, not so common here, and we love to do events, and we love to do measures that people can actually connect. So this is just a brief view on the startups we have in our program, supported so far or educated. So it's actually also broad topics, always topics that are connected to our corporate partners, to the corporate industry, and our aim is always to find the solution and apply the technology, or even not the technology in the space that is not even thought about by the startup, and test it in the industrial environment and make the what the startup can do in the small, connected with the scalability of the corporate, of the industry, and then in the end, scale the impact. So as you can see, we have that done quite a few times. We have nice financing round already, and there are more to come. We are a small team, roughly 8 people. So we are, as I said, no experts for anything, but we know the process. We know how it's going to be right, and so we have very focused experience in it, and are actually there to connect all the experts that are doing there in that field 24/7. And as I said again, we are driven by the industry. So first of all, we get private funding, doing a job, and then leveraging it also by public sources. So for educating the startup, we get paid, but we leverage what we get also by public funding. So we are a local startup center for bioeconomy, supported by the Ministry of Economy in Lower Saxony, which is the fellow state there. But as you can hear later on as well, we are also doing other projects, other things for public sources or more on the neutral area. But first of all, so what is actually the demand of the transition? What's the demand? Why are we actually needing to use an ecosystem, look at the ecosystem? So I'll go into the demand for circularity for bioeconomy, just in a very meta perspective, and then go into the point where the transition is actually needed, or what we can actually do, and then how that is actually applied in a very concrete manner. So you might have heard about it. The biggest hurdle or the biggest challenge is actually feeding the 10 billion people we expect in this world in 2050, on feeding them within the limits of the global agri-food system. So we have a certain amount of calories, we have used so far, and the amount of calories that is needed to be produced by all the agri-food systems is actually increasing if we are treating the world the way we're doing that right now, or if we are actually using the resources. So in the end, the biological calories we are having in the same way. So that's more or less a fact. Yeah, and so it gives us actually a goal on what we should do and how we can actually treat it. And so, but if we have this food there, so we need 65% more calories, more energy from our world in 2050 as it was in 2010. We have actually 3 ways what we can do. Yeah, we can increase the production. We are on it. It's about breeding. It's about doing better farming, doing precision agriculture, doing novel farming. We can also cut the waste. So we can use the resources that we have and reduce it using cascade systems. So use the material that's being produced by the biological systems for a couple of times and not just burn it in the very first step. So it's about reducing emissions. Said differently, every emission is a loss. Yeah, so emission is just reduced efficiency. Yeah, it's not freedom to have the chance to use emissions. It's just the bad part of the process. And the third thing is that we can actually change the markets. So we can change the behavior of the other humans, not us only, but of all humans. And that's actually the biggest part. So changing habits, not eating meat anymore in the same extent we used to do it. That is something that we can actually only indirectly support or change, but it's also a very important part of the whole thing. How do we actually use the calories that we are getting every year out of the agri-food systems? Now we have a few opportunities. What can we actually do? Increase production, not only breeding, but also take care of the soil health, doing the optimal farm management, yields to be increased, new crops to be applied to after the or within the climate change maybe The growing opportunities are changing. In Germany, for example, more and more soy is being applied. So new crops are being planted. We just take carbon out of the air, so take carbon dioxide and turn it directly by microbial sequestration into the food. These are more things how we can actually increase the production. And the cutaways is cascade usage. We have new valorization. That one example is the biogas facilities in Germany. It's a good thing. So you have bio-LNG, you have heat for local communities. That is all something quite well. But if you look at how the energy is being produced, is that you take the field, you grow corn on it, driven by a fossil-driven tractor, for example, highly intensified. And then you do a little bit silage, and then you actually turn it directly into the gas that you burn. So this is an okay process, but in the end, it could be much better that you actually use the carbon that's been segmented by the biological systems and use it as material first, and then you can actually burn it anyhow later on. So this is also about circular processes, so you cannot use it in different cascades if you're not looking at it and if you're not doing it smartly, and always try to do it in a circular. Ensure upsetting is also going into the right direction, just taking something and not needing to produce it newly, but take something that had been produced before. Change markets, as I said, novel farming system. So you're eating not the very cheap shrimp, for example, that's being grown on mangrove areas, but it's being grown in a land-based aquaculture. You vary the feedstock, eat less meat, eat more plant-based diets or microbial-based, produce proteins, and also the consumption is obviously something that we can really change. And one of the biggest things that is not really up into the market yet, but the true cost accounting. So starting to incorporate all the costs that are applying to or that are connected to certain products, or the costs that are typically carried or carried by the by all of mankind, but just used by a few one, to actually spread them out and direct the cost towards the product. One of the big retailers in Germany has tried that in 2020. Nobody cared about it. So the sausage was just not 3 euros, but it was all of a sudden 6 euros. And a few months ago, they tried it again, and it really made it towards the headline of the news. So there's something changing, and the idea is getting more concrete and more concrete. But still, we are far away from actually true cost accounting, and true cost accounting is something that is actually supported with content-driven mode, because all the emissions, all the losses connected to using fossil material are just not connected to the price. And this is something that we actually have in the bioeconomy. We would directly have it, or it's easier to connect it. But these are all just examples, and let's look at it one step in more detail. We need actually to look at the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is something that is defined by very hard limits. I'm a biologist, so you need to define, you set the borders, but the ecosystem is actually able to produce life depending on the inputs that it has. So solar is the input, moisture is an input, nutrients that are there is an input, and based on these limitations or based on this definition, we will have an ecosystem that's been developing. And if we look at an ecosystem, we have also a few ways of actually changing this ecosystem. So if we turn that idea of a biologically defined ecosystem into a startup or innovation ecosystem, it's actually also defined by certain limitations. So the area of education or academics that is there. So the number of ideas that can be produced, or the number of technologies that can be applied in technology. So if we do not have any infrastructure to apply certain idea that comes out of academics, you just have a limitation in the ecosystem to produce new innovations. Also, the funding is something that is very important, that can always change, but we have a certain amount of funding. In Germany, for example, it's a totally different venture capital environment instead of, or in comparison to the US, just because there are some regulations, some decisions being made. And so it's a different funding ecosystem, and also the product market fit. So you have different products, you have different markets, and depending on how the market's actually being set up, how certain regulations are affecting the way your product can be marketed, you have a good opportunity or not such a good opportunity for certain area of eco-friendly of green products. And as I said, the cost accounting regulations on that is just a very, very important part to just not have the fossil bias, so not to promote actually fossil-driven products that are by nature, by definition, extremely efficient, extremely going forward, because it is just so easy to just fill a tanker with fossil feedstock, driving it to the refinery, and then have 40,000 people work. And this is just something different than if you look at more decentralized bioeconomy systems. And then we have something like certainty or stability. So whenever the ecosystem, the regulation is quite stable, and you can actually see in which way it's going, or you have already learned that it is most probably going this or that way, then you have a certain stability in the system or a certainty for adjusting to new innovation, to new developments. And the last point is it's also the scaling environment. Are you able to scale a certain type of application, certain type of process into this environment, or are you also regionally limited? So are you basically on an island? So is it a hard limit, or are you actually able to extend the borders of the ecosystem? So, and then in the end, what is needed for the transition? So going back to what I have said before, we have three ways of what we can actually, or how we can actually save the world, and the difference to the slide that I showed before is that I changed the color into green of the opportunities that are not bilateral opportunities. So if I have a certain field and I apply a new type of microbiome products on it, then I can do the producer of the microbiome products and the farmer, and those two bilaterally can actually change something in the small at least. But if I have a new crop that needs to be applied, that is something that is not working in a bilateral manner. You need way more different stakeholders. You actually are changing the whole value chain. And this is true for all the topics that I marked here in green. So carbon to food. It's more or less the same thing like a new crop. It's a new product. It's maybe with regulation, you need to have a space where you are actually producing it. You need to find new customers and so on. So there are different, this one effect that you have a new technology, you have implementation that using some nutrients and then actually the air or carbon dioxide out of the air to produce a new food. That affects a whole variety of different stakeholders in the value chain. Also know the farming system, varying feedstock and so on. So with this understanding, then we can do something on our own, just looking for new products, looking for new application methods. But on the other hand, if you want to change something, we need to talk with different people about. And this is the understanding of the value chain. And this going back into the ecosystem, yes, the whole ecosystem contains or is being made out of different value chains. So that the sum of value chains is actually defined or is defining the ecosystem that we have. As we have said, so we have these different limits. And let's look at different ways of how to extend certain ecosystems. And now I'm going into actually practical projects that we are actually doing right now. So from these three parts, we're going now into the ecosystem development. And one of the projects we're doing is for in the end an economic support agency out of Spain. So they have a food ecosystem, a food tech ecosystem in Spain. Lots and lots of startups there, roughly 400. And they've understood that the market in Spain is not enough for all this amount of food tech startups that want to apply technology in this existing market. So they said, okay, they need to extend it somehow to different markets. And that's what we did right now. So we have looked at most of the startups, selected a few of them, 10 of the startups, and are now taking these startups and bring them to a new market. So we extend the ecosystem of actually the Spanish food tech ecosystem and change actually the market, extend the regional limits. Why is that so important? A small graph here. So not only that the Spanish part obviously is smaller than the German part, that was not so much a surprise, but actually, at least for the years of 2020 and 2025, the German market actually was showing that way different dynamics than the Spanish market for plant-based products. So if we have a changing market, that's how also venture capitalists are always looking at the growing market. You have a changing market, and that is much easier to start with innovation in a growing market, because you have then customers that are looking for the first time to find the right product they want to apply. You don't need to change them from a different product into your new product. And that is just from the certainty that you need to deliver to the trust that you need to build as something different. So there are new decisions being made. And that's something, a totally new situation, different situation than what we see in the in red here, the Spanish market. That is first of all smaller, not such a big problem for very small startups, but it's actually quite stable. So there's not much dynamic there. So there's not much appetite for new products. And this is something where you can actually look, and this is true for most of the startups also, that you are always looking for an environment, for a situation where you can actually apply your new product or innovation in the easiest way. So this explains us why Germany are going to Germany is a good stop point. There's also a program to going to the UK. But having said that, the product market fit for the Spanish ecosystem is something that we're looking for. And we have another project called High-Tech, where we get EU funding to optimize or to foster the Mediterranean ecosystem, the agriculture ecosystem of southern Italy. So Italy is, you might know, quite divided between the industrial north and the less industrialized south of Italy. So in the south, there's lots and lots of agriculture, and in the end, it is the market environment that is sort of supporting itself. So there's not much interaction. So they grow the very best tomatoes, but do not export them, do not even bring them to the north. So there's a way of working environment, but it is quite stable. And so even there, you need to foster the situation, to actually apply new ways of innovation. You need to go to extend regional limits. And so this is what we did there. So we had a consortium, also from the north, the Tech Fabric was from Denmark, Sweden, FoodTech, obviously from Stockholm, and also us. And we tried to collect whatever we have learned on how to build an ecosystem, to find the right innovation, how to treat innovation, how to support actually the startups. And this is something that we are then applying to the local ecosystem, either way, telling them how to interact better or how to interact proactively so that they're using whatever they have already, Second is to understand what they are doing better than everybody else in the world, and then foster actually the export or bring the innovation from there towards different areas. And on the third part, we are looking where the challenges are in the region and then try to find innovation from all over the world to apply it there. These are different ways of trying to extend the limits of an ecosystem and to foster it so it can develop on its own way better. As I said, education, so training the trainer, finding the multiplier there, and offer them also to look into other ecosystems to understand what they can actually use from that learning into their local environment. Also, funding is something that we want to direct there. So doing pitch training, how we did it here at the local fairs at Agri-Technica, we do the startup, we run the startup pitches. And this is something that we want to apply also in this area to attract different types of funding there. Okay, but this is just more on the understanding side or more on the globally looking at certain ecosystems. As I said, the ecosystem is the sum out of different value chains, and so we want to go also one step further, one step more into the detail to change actually the value chain that are there. So value chains clearly starting at the production of a certain material and then go through towards the customer and involving all the stakeholders that are there. In theory, there's just one line, actually one chain of material usage, always from supplier towards the customer. And yet it's a bit complex because there are different material streams there. But to change actually or to apply the change and to help the transformation, you need to look for dynamic value chains. Yeah, so looking at some of the value chains right now shows you that there's a huge dynamic that different mega factors like climate change, like human consumption, so applying on different areas of the value chain. And there are certain factors that are actually enabling us to change the value chain, to support the stakeholders and bring them into a new level or bringing them towards the transformation. So first of all, it needs to be homogeneously. Here we have an example of pea protein. So homogeneous, everybody knows that he's doing product with pea protein inside. We need to have a certain volume, it needs to be big, so that's useful to apply that, or it needs to be somehow reasonably connected, and there's actually a platform that needs to meet it. And here we have also the prioritization, so enabling factors and also prioritization factors. There needs to be a certain market, and it needs to be defined by certain products. So that's also very helpful. So there are other ways we can also look for a factor where the regulatory is changing, where prices are changing, like prices for labor, or that there are certain opportunities for production. So we looked at the first example at the pea protein value chain, initially because also one of our partners, KWS, was understanding that they had 1,000 varieties of pea seeds and didn't know which one to apply. Yeah, and so the dynamic was that 100,000 tons of production capacity of pea protein is being installed by 2026. And so this whole thing failed actually, and there's the disruption in communication. So because the dynamic is so fast that it is not enough anymore that it's a speed that's really aligning itself. So the farmer is talking to the miller is talking to the baker is talking to the end customer. But actually there needs to be a new way of communication and different steps of the value chain. I need to talk to each other. So the communication, the disruption is actually in the communication. So closing the gap, we have changed markets, we have a right consumption, and this is then the P as the meat alternative. And also you have the opportunity, once you have looked at this value chain, you can actually look and sort where startups can actually apply best. So some are looking, supporting the breeding, some are supporting actually the production, some are adding a certain new product comes towards the production, some are more in the processing, more in the functionalization. And so once we have actually the mapping done, we have combined interaction of all the stakeholders, you can see where are actually certain innovation gaps opening that are hindering this value chain to transform or to foster. And then you can look and very specifically see where to position certain startups or certain innovation, and not just one startup and one certain type of innovation, but as we are globally sourcing and scouting for startups, we can actually offer 5 or 6 or 7 of different solutions that can directly apply to this one innovation. So this is then the way of the whole ecosystem towards the value chain, and then again into the bilateral way to interact between skills. And here the transformation of it was actually not the reading, not increasing as much the content of P, of protein into the P, but actually the side product starch. So you need to have a starch value chain, or the valorization of starch was actually quite a driver. So one example, Biotechnology is doing microbial production of cellulose. They can use starch that can be incorporated into the production facility, like many other examples we have identified, or added function. So you can do a hybrid product. The pea patty actually contains the value of the pea patty. It's not just the material, but actually 50% of the value is actually the taste, so the flavoring. So you could add there, for example, as I put it here, cultivate, also startup that we have supported. You can add there, say there's add, for example, to add certain type of flavor juices. So this is something that we are doing now, also supported by the Fund of the Ministry of Agriculture, onto different areas. So we are identifying now different value chain, and one of the first topics we are addressing is actually industrial hemp, because everybody is clear that it's a huge opportunity to store carbon, but right now it is not actually a functioning value chain. There are different areas where it's being done, but the critical mass is not yet. And so there's demand to actually combine them all the stakeholders, and see where can actually stakeholders interact better together, when innovation can be applied. So that actually the industrial hemp, or the growth of industrial hemp, was actually driving the whole value chain towards the end customer, if that is construction material or anything else. But right now, this is not not a good value chain. I was looking at now, it's very regional spots that being applied. So this is the one example. Another example is actually the venture granting. So we are helping the corporates to find new customers or to interact with startups. One of the examples is actually a land-based aquaculture company that has been with us for a few years now. So we have educated them to actually brought them towards a close by mining site and all the industrial side. We helped them to find the right strategy to come to the market. Now they have on brand Gamba Gamba, so they have the only shrimp brand in Germany. And the best thing that we are a little bit proud of is that they actually now not doing only a demo plan, but actually going and do what they have learned, take off all the learnings that they have, the data they collected, to convince the investors and really go into scale and change the world by growing or building the biggest European shrimp-based land-based shrimp aquaculture company or facility right next to our farm. So this is from my side. I'm just a small glimpse of what we are actually doing. And I'm happy to answer your question. Many thanks.
Many thanks, Philipp.